Another Star Wars series down, and I still don't know what's happening. We've watched Ahsoka, and it starts with all the characters here, and it ends with all the characters here. It moves them around, little set pieces, and then moves them to be in the exact same place, just in a different location. But basically the story is Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren, her apprentice, they are tasked with finding this threat that's emerging, which turns out to be Admiral Thrawn, and the most non-threatening villain I've seen in quite some time. I'll get into that a little bit later. But basically, they're also facing a lady that wants to become a witch, and she has hired two, not Sith, just bounty hunters that are also force sensitive and have lightsabers. And that's Baylan Skoll and his apprentice, Shin Hati. And, you know, that's the baseline story. It's very much a continuation of the animated shows, which was Clone Wars and Rebels. I've not watched any of that. So, the story for me, I was just out of the loop for most of it. And I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan. In fact, I'm probably a Star Wars hater. But I still watch all the content because JD needs someone to talk about it with. And I'm just here as a grump. And I'm admitting that up front. But hey, I have some positive things to say about the show. The story is not one of them, because they start basically all separated. The bad guys come and sort of win. Not really. It's like half and half, 50-50. And then by the end, all these characters that you've met through the whole show are just basically doing the same thing that they started doing at the very beginning. And that's the problem with a lot of these Disney shows, Marvel included, is that they don't want to set up so many things that people are lost when they go watch a movie. And I think part of that is WandaVision very much did its own thing. But it had to end a certain way, so not too much had happened. And so it took place in just this small little town. But a lot happened to Wanda's character. A lot happened to Vision's character. A lot happened to Yana Paris's character. Spectrum. That's it. I nailed it. But anyways, so they all went through stuff and changed as people. Whereas in this, Ahsoka, all Ahsoka really learns is that she's very aggressive, just like Anakin, her teacher, her master. Oh, cool. Sabine learned that. I don't know what she learned. She didn't really learn anything. She just learned how to use the Force, which is not a character development. That is just sort of the Jedi thing. That's what you're supposed to do as a Jedi. There was no conflicting interest other than she wanted to find Ezra. And so my problem is that the characterization here is not really moving mountains, really. It's not engaging enough to continue watching. Like, if you're a casual Star Wars fan, you're probably not going to enjoy this. If you're a diehard Star Wars fan, I've seen online, a lot of people are way into it if they've seen all the content that has ever been produced. But I will say, the acting by Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano, they've done good casting there. Sabine Wren, good. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera Syndulla. She didn't get a lot to do, but when she had it, she crushed it. And of course, Ray Stevenson, absolutely wonderful as Baylan. I think he nailed this like gray neutral area of the Force that they've never really captured in any other film. And I think Baylan is the first character that I've seen do it justice. Like, he feels, when you watch him in the show, you feel like he's being pulled from both sides of the Force. Whereas in the prequels, Anakin just sort of becomes bad. I know Palpatine has influenced him and all that stuff, but he just goes from good to bad. It's not really explained too well. They've done a good job of retconning all that, but yeah, so Baylan is really great. His apprentice Shin, I think there's some good work to be done there. So the characters, I don't mind. I didn't really like Lars Mikkelsen as Admiral Thrawn. It's whatever. He did not look menacing. He did not look terrifying in any way. I'm sure there's some context I'm missing, which leads me to my next point. All of this is out of context. If you've not watched the animated series, you're lost. You're lost. I was lost. It took me 4 episodes to figure out what he was going on, and I had to read some articles. It shouldn't have to come to this. Big plot points that should have happened in The Mandalorian shouldn't have happened in another show. And I get that they want you to watch all the content, but that's simply not possible in 2023. You can't watch all the shows. There's just too much content out there. It's sort of like the problem in wrestling is there's so many shows, there's so much wrestling that you're just inundated. You only have to watch only wrestling or only Star Wars or only Marvel to follow along. The fighting in this is hit or miss. There's some really great fights. There's some really corny fights. The witches that show up at the later parts of the series, didn't care for them. They didn't really do anything. They just did some spells to create a sword and get stormtrooper zombies. And I'm just like, why were they even there? I'm sure there's some reason why they're there, but I don't care. I will say that when Baylan and Ahsoka were fighting, I really liked that. When Sabine and Shin were fighting, I really liked that. Did not like Ezra at all. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I'm missing a lot of context out of that, and I apologize. But I think there's some really good fights in here. I know a lot of people online are upset about the motion blur on the lightsabers, but I don't care as long as the fights are good. The stuff with Anakin and Ahsoka in like the dream afterworld, like limbo area, I thought that was really well done. And I love that Hayden Christensen's coming back as Anakin and sort of just like retconning certain things or adding in some pieces to the puzzle to give Darth Vader that depth. There are things to like in the show. It's just that I think Filoni and whoever else worked on this focused on the wrong things. I very much just wanted Ahsoka and Sabine and Baylan and Shin and the competing aspects of the duality of the Force, like master and apprentice. And on the Sith side, the apprentice always tries to kill the master, and while on the Jedi side, there's always a struggle to the master trying to teach the apprentice. So I really, really wanted it to be just that. I didn't want all this witch stuff. I didn't want all this Thrawn stuff. I don't want any of that. I don't like it. I wanted just to focus on the duality of the Force. If there was more of that, I think I would have liked the show a lot more. And I know the future is leading into the Mandalorian movie, so I'm excited for these characters to come back for that movie. I know that that movie is probably going to be better than these shows have been lately. I hope, I pray. But I will say, if you're a big diehard Star Wars fan, you're probably going to like this. There's a lot of lore explaining. There's a lot of just like things that if you've been following along since the beginning, you'll be like, oh, there's that. Oh, there's that. But if you're casual, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you watched it.